If aliens land tomorrow, you're not sprinting toward the mothership with a USB stick and a catchy one-liner. You're standing in your kitchen, in socks, holding your phone at 3% battery, trying to figure out if you should fill the bathtub, call your mom, or just scream into the refrigerator. So let's start with the one truth almost every movie lies to you about. In an alien invasion, you are not the hero. You are background radiation. You are anonymous carbon. You are one soft, water-filled primate on a rock that something vastly smarter has decided to visit, exploit, observe, or possibly clean off like mold on bread. And that is actually good news, because once you stop pretending you're the main character, you can finally start thinking like someone who might actually survive. Listen. Any civilization that can cross interstellar space is playing in a league so far above us that our nukes, jets, and bravest speeches are basically toddlers throwing glitter at a freight train. The energy required to accelerate a meaningful ship to even 10% the speed of light is absurd. You're talking star-level power output, precision engineering beyond anything we can do, navigation across years or centuries. If they can do that, they do not come here to have dogfights over Manhattan like it's an air show. That's human ego, not physics. So if they're hostile and efficient, the war ends before you even realize it started. Orbital kinetic strikes from high above, maybe rods of tungsten the size of buses slamming into military bases at Mach 20. No heroic jets punching through clouds, just silent flashes over the horizon, seismic waves, and then the sound of every siren that still works going off at once. And if that's the scenario, there is no how to fight back guide. There's just, did you happen to be somewhere irrelevant when the hammer fell? That's it. But real life is messy. Maybe they're not fully hostile. Maybe they're confused. Maybe they're here for resources and want the biosphere intact. Maybe they underestimate us. Maybe they can't saturate the whole globe at once. Maybe they're running the invasion like a corporate cost-cutting exercise and don't want to waste too much energy on extermination. Those maybes are where your survival window lives. So we're going to talk about what you, specifically you, could actually do in a semi-realistic alien contact or invasion. Not to win, not to upload a virus to their mainframe, just to not die stupidly in the opening act and maybe live long enough to adapt to whatever the new world looks like. First step, drop the hero fantasy. Replace it with something much more powerful. Cold, boring, unromantic survival. The first real weapon you have is not a gun, not a bunker, not a lifted pickup truck with a flag. It's information. In the first hours of contact, the people who live or die are not separated by courage. They're separated by how fast they can update their picture of reality. That sounds abstract, but it's brutally concrete. Do you recognize fast enough that this is not a drill, not a hoax, not a movie marketing campaign? Can you tell the difference between "we've got this under control" and "we have absolutely no idea what's happening, but we don't want panic"? If tomorrow the sky fills with strange lights, your feed will explode. Dozens of shaky videos, conspiracy accounts screaming, "I told you so," governments releasing tightly worded statements about unidentified aerial phenomena, your cousin saying it's Project Blue Beam, some guy live streaming himself trying to talk to the ship in binary. Your job in that noise is to do ruthless triage. You don't need the weird emotional content. You need pattern recognition. Are the same things being reported from multiple continents? Are observatories and serious scientific institutions reacting, or only influencers freaking out? Are airlines grounding flights? Did satellite imagery start updating less often, or did global monitoring networks go weird? When the people whose entire lives are watching the sky start sweating, you pay attention. If you hear about massive communication blackouts, satellites going silent, or GPS suddenly glitching worldwide, that's not a stunt. Geomagnetic storms can do that, but we usually see those coming. If it's sudden and secretive, you're not in a drill. You're in the opening minutes of someone else's war. Information matters because your next moves, stay put, get out, who to trust, what to ignore, all ride on the one question: how big is this and how fast is it moving? But don't fall in love with any one narrative. Humans cling to explanations like life rafts. It's fake, it's demons, the government's got this. In an alien invasion, certainty kills. You need working hypotheses, not religions. You're allowed to be wrong. You're not allowed to be stubborn. Let's say it becomes undeniable. Ships, structures, objects in the sky behaving in ways our aircraft simply don't. Maybe something lands, maybe something burns, maybe parts of the power grid blink out and don't come back. Now you face your first truly consequential decision. Do you stay where you are or do you move? In survival, the bug in versus bug out decision is one of the hardest, even for disasters we understand. Storms, wars, pandemics. Add aliens to that, and everyone suddenly thinks the correct move is to jump in the car, floor it, and drive to the countryside, like that's a magical shield against kinetic bombardment. Reality check: if you live in or near a major city, important port, big military base, space facility, critical infrastructure hub, or government center, you are living inside a higher probability target. If something intelligently hostile wants to smack human civilization, it hits command and control, energy, and transport first. That's 101, decapitation strike. But blindly joining a panicked exodus is also how you die on a gridlocked highway, watching contrails and flashes in the distance with an empty fuel tank and no water. Roads turn into traps insanely fast. So ask yourself early, before fear fully takes over, if I stay right here, what are the realistic threats? If I leave, where am I going that is measurably safer, and can I get there without depending on everything working perfectly? Being out of the obvious blast radius is useful. Distance is still king in physics. If something like an orbital kinetic strike hits 10 kilometers away, shockwaves and shattered glass are your big problems. If it hits 1 kilometer away, your problems are over. Thermal radiation from a high-energy impact or weapon can start fires and burn skin miles away, but concrete walls, basements, and lack of line of sight still matter. So if you choose to stay put, you do something very uncinematic and very smart. You quietly pre-stage your shelter. You identify the safest place you can reasonably occupy in your building. Not the window with the best view of the alien ship. Somewhere away from glass, deep inside, low if there's a risk of blast, high enough if there's flooding potential. Basements and interior hallways are friends. You move some supplies there: water, food, light, first aid, warm clothing, a way to go to the bathroom in a bucket if the plumbing dies. And if you choose to leave, you don't leave in chaos. You don't post a farewell video about heading to the mountains, wish us luck. You go fast, light, and early before every other person with the same half-baked idea hits the road. You bring water, calories, and layers, not your entire gaming setup. And whichever you pick, commit. The worst thing you can do is churn. Stay, panic, leave late, get stuck, turn back, waste time, burn fuel, and end up stranded exactly where you didn't want to be. Now, let's assume the infrastructure starts failing, because even if the aliens do nothing directly to you, they're interfering with something. Space assets, satellites, high-voltage grids, global networks. It's all hideously fragile. We've built a civilization that assumes always on as the default. Pull a few keystones and things crack. If the power flickers and dies for longer than a few hours, city life goes from inconvenient to survival problem very quickly. Your tap runs on electricity, directly or indirectly. The pumps, treatment plants, and control systems that move water into your building do not care that aliens are outside. They care that their controls are dark. This is why one of the smartest things you can do very early, when it still feels overreactive, is embarrassingly simple. Fill every container you can reasonably fill with water. The bathtub, pots, clean trash cans lined with plastic bags, buckets, bottles. Because right now, while most people are still doom scrolling and arguing about whether it's fake, the water is still flowing. Once people realize what's happening, you get the run on the stores, the bottled water, the hoarding. You cannot drink out of stock. If you've got a water heater, that's a hidden reservoir too. Learn how to access it now, not when you're thirsty and panicked. Then, as supplies tighten, treat every unknown water source as contaminated by default. Boiling is the gold standard. It doesn't care whether the pathogen is alien, terrestrial, or something recently engineered. Heat denatures proteins and wrecks delicate biological machinery. If you can't boil, chemical treatment is your next line. Unscented household bleach at about 2 drops per liter of clear water, left for at least 30 minutes, can make a lot of dubious water safer, though not perfect. Cloudy water should be filtered through cloth and then treated. Precise dosing depends on concentration, but the principle stands. A little chlorine beats a lot of diarrhea in a world with no hospitals. Water is not glamorous. It will never be in the trailer for the Alien movie. But in almost every collapse scenario, it's the quiet, boring thing that kills people in week 2 while they're still imagining epic battles. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources. Now, because we're talking aliens, there's an extra layer to the contamination problem: biology. A lot of people assume alien germs will instantly wipe us out, or will instantly wipe them out. Reality is more complicated and, weirdly, slightly in your favor in the short term. Pathogens are usually highly specialized. A virus that evolved in a totally different biochemistry on a planet with different amino acids, different cell membranes, and different receptors might not recognize your mucous membranes as anything but an uninteresting wet surface. It'd be like a key designed for an octagonal lock trying to fit into a zipper. But that's only true if the aliens just show up with whatever happens to live on their homeworld's version of a doorknob. If they're hostile and planning, they might not bring alien germs. They might bring custom-built killers made from things that already work on Earth: hacked Earth bacteria, engineered viruses, weaponized fungi, or something even uglier: nanotech that's self-replicating using local organic matter. Gray goo with good targeting software. For you, it doesn't matter whether the thing that kills you has DNA, RNA, or a firmware version number. The countermeasures look the same: minimize exposure, maximize hygiene, and assume that human medical infrastructure is going to be completely overwhelmed or offline. Masks stop droplets. They don't care if the droplet contains influenza or designer death. Good hand washing with soap breaks lipid membranes in many viruses and physically lifts pathogens away. Ventilation dilutes whatever is floating around. Distance reduces the chance that a single unlucky cough gives you a ticket to the underworld. In a world where aliens might be messing with biology, your default stance should be low-contact hermit with OCD about surfaces. Shared food, crowded shelters, group panics, these become petri dishes. If you do form a small survival group, consider some version of a quarantine protocol for new arrivals. A few days of isolation, observation for symptoms, limited contact, then gradual integration. It sounds cold, it is, but outbreaks in small groups can destroy the only support network you have. Cooking food thoroughly, keeping waste separate from water sources, and treating cuts immediately all become even more critical when unknown pathogens, human or not, might be circulating. Human immune systems are impressive, but they're not magic. They're algorithms trained on Earth's training data. Don't give them harder work than they already have. Now, while all of this is happening, blackouts, bad water, strange lights, whispered words like bioweapon, there's another threat growing that has nothing to do with what's in orbit: other humans. You have lived your entire life surrounded by people whose behavior is constrained by rules, fear of consequences, and a belief that tomorrow will mostly look like today. Take that away, even for 48 hours, and you don't get instant Mad Max, but you do get volatility. Some people panic, some become predatory, some go into denial so deep they might as well be sleepwalking. Some become weirdly heroic in ways that get themselves and others killed because they mistake drama for effectiveness. Your survival depends heavily on not being in the blast radius of other people's bad decisions. One of the best strategies here is something called the gray man principle. You don't want to look like prey, but you also don't want to look like a prize. You want to look like an uninteresting extra in someone else's story. That means not advertising that you have stockpiles, skills, or information. It means not wandering the streets with a rifle slung over your shoulder in some fantasy of being the last lawman in town. It also means not looking helpless to the point where every desperate person sees you as a soft target. Act calm, but not cocky. Move with purpose, but not urgency. Carry your gear in nondescript bags, not tactical cosplay. Keep your voice low. Arguments in public are magnets for attention you can't afford. In every group decision, ask yourself, if this goes wrong loudly, how many new eyes does it bring to us? There's also the ethical part no one likes to talk about. People you know may come to you for help: food, water, space. Saying yes feels good. It also rapidly turns your small, sustainable setup into a sinking lifeboat. There is no easy answer here, but if you intend to survive more than a week, you need a line. You decide in advance who is in your circle, family, close friends, maybe one or two others, and you commit to protecting that circle. You are not morally obligated to martyr everyone, including children, to help every latecomer who laughed at prepping a month ago. If that sounds harsh, it's because survival is harsh. You can still be kind, you can still share information, point people towards resources, even cache small supplies in public places, but you cannot save everyone, and pretending you can is how you all end up dead. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources. Now, because we're talking aliens, there's an extra layer to the contamination problem. We've talked mostly like the aliens are background radiation. They tweak our environment and we suffer the consequences. What if they are actively hunting humans? What if their strategy involves tracking, capturing, or eliminating pockets of resistance? Then your biggest question becomes, how visible are you really? Any civilization advanced enough to cross light years probably sees in more than just a visible band. We already use infrared, radar, LiDAR, radio frequency monitoring, even neutrino detectors. Scale that up a few thousand years, and they may be looking at Earth through layers of sensors we don't even have names for. You're a warm, moist, 37 degrees Celsius blob leaking infrared like a broken radiator. You're a bundle of metal and silicon broadcasting in radio, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth when you use tech. You're a heat plume when you start a big fire. At the macro scale, human settlements are glaring anomalies on the dark side of the planet. So survival in that scenario means learning to be dim. Not invisible, that's fantasy, but harder to pick out from the background. Start with heat. Big bonfires are a terrible idea if something above you is running IR scans and looking for anomalies. Small, shielded, efficient cooking fires are better, built in depressions or enclosed spaces with good ventilation. Insulate heat sources. Don't let them just roar out into the night. Even indoors, a large homeless-style barrel fire in the middle of a warehouse is going to look like a flare against surrounding buildings. Electromagnetic emissions are another beacon. If the grid is down and you're the one house lit up with a generator humming and Wi-Fi blazing, you're not just visible to your desperate neighbors, you're also a little spike in the EM spectrum. Reduce power use, hardwire where you can, and don't transmit unless you must. That long, heartfelt radio broadcast to anyone out there might be a homing beacon for someone you do not want visiting. Movement patterns are data too. Major roads, open fields, skylines with silhouettes of people constantly moving, these scream active human area. Animals survive by using terrain for cover, tree lines, ravines, building shadows. You should too. Crossing open ground is something you do only when you've scanned, when you have to, and as quickly and quietly as you can. You're not going to out-tech anything that came from the stars, but you can still force them to spend more resources to find you. And at scale, a lot of small humans being annoying to detect can begin to matter, especially if the aliens are balancing other tasks. It's worth remembering, predators don't hunt everything. Even apex predators focus where the energy return is best. If staying low, cold, and quiet makes you an inefficient target compared to the big glowing city they're already dismantling, congratulations, you've just made yourself a poor investment. Of course, even if the worst passes and you're not vaporized, enslaved, or harvested, the old world is not snapping back like a rubber band. If aliens stay, you're not in a crisis, you're in a new ecosystem. History has one extremely relevant analogy. When a technologically superior culture encounters a less advanced one, it almost never plays out as an even fight. Aztecs versus conquistadores, island societies versus colonial empires. The pattern is brutal. Disease, shock, disrupted food systems, local power struggles, and eventually a new normal where the old way of life exists only in stories. You're going to live in that uncomfortable in-between for a while. In that phase, the Hollywood script says, form the resistance, blow up a ship, upload the virus, inspire the world. Real life says, don't die pointlessly. The first and hardest lesson, you are not leading the resistance. You are not even in the room where the resistance is planning, if it exists. You are one person who might, someday, be able to help in small, precise ways, passing information, hiding someone, refusing a collaboration request, if and when that won't annihilate everyone you care about. Until then, your job is to survive under occupation. That means studying your new overlords with the same cold curiosity you wish they hadn't used on you. How do they move? What do they care about? Do they ignore rural areas and lock down cities, or the opposite? Do they strip resources and leave, or establish permanent bases? What do their drones seem to scan for? Are there patterns to their presence, times, places, behaviors that trigger responses? Survival is partly about being a good observer. It also means becoming incredibly valuable to humans. In a disrupted world, high-prestige peacetime skills, knowing every Taylor Swift lyric, optimizing ad campaigns, drop in value. Skills that keep bodies alive go through the roof. Can you grow food in limited space, preserve it without refrigeration, fix tools and machines without spare parts, treat infections when antibiotics are scarce, deliver a baby without a hospital, make clean water out of swamp? Those skills make you integral to a group. They're the difference between being extra luggage and being the reason a community keeps feeding you when times get brutal. The good news is biology, chemistry, and physics don't stop working just because the skyline changed. Plants still photosynthesize, soil still holds nutrients, fire still purifies water. Even under alien oversight, there will be enormous patches of Earth where day-to-day life looks less like a sci-fi movie and more like a rough homestead with weird things occasionally humming across the sky. Growing anything, potatoes, beans, leafy greens, becomes both survival and resistance. Every calorie you produce locally is a calorie you don't have to beg for, steal, or accept from a collaborator's ration line. And while you're doing all of this, there's one more battlefield that decides who makes it to the other side: your own head. We love main character energy. We tell stories where the one brave soul stands up, says no more, and the universe bends around their courage. It's intoxicating. In daily life, it can be kind of charming. In a collapse or invasion, that same instinct can get you killed spectacularly. 3 cognitive traps will stalk you: normalcy bias, hero fantasy, and despair. Normalcy bias whispers, "This will blow over. It can't be as bad as it looks. Surely someone's handling it." That's the voice that tells you to keep going to work while the horizon glows. It keeps you from filling the bathtub because it would be weird. You need to learn to override that with a simple rule. If the cost of preparing is low and the cost of not preparing could be your life, you prepare. You can always dump a loader later. You will not get a do-over on the week before things break. Hero fantasy is the opposite problem. It tells you that it's your job to take insane risks because that's what a good person would do. That you have a destiny to face the mothership, rescue the kids, or drive a truck bomb into a force field. It flatters your ego right up until your body hits the concrete. There is courage in fighting. There is also courage in hiding, in waiting, in choosing not to escalate when you have no leverage. The universe does not hand out special protections to people with good intentions. Despair, finally, is the quieter killer. It arrives after the first adrenaline wave fades. When the lights have been out for weeks, the sky looks wrong. The news, if it exists, is a stream of losses. That's when you start to think, what's the point? Even if I live, what am I living for? Here's the uncomfortable, liberating truth. Survival doesn't require a grand narrative. It doesn't need a promised happy ending. It needs you to keep doing boring, necessary things: filtering water, drying firewood, checking perimeters, tending plants, even when your internal monologue is screaming that it's useless. One way to trick your brain into cooperation is to shrink your time horizon. Stop trying to survive the invasion. Start trying to survive the next hour, the next day, the next week. Give yourself tiny, achievable missions. Today, I fixed the roof leak. Today, I learned how to sprout beans. Today, I check in with the old lady 2 houses down and make sure she's still breathing. Routine is a weapon. Even under alien skies, your nervous system relaxes when there is predictability. Set wake times, meal times, tasks. Rotate guards or watches if you're in a group. Write things down, because memory in chronic stress is garbage. Keep a notebook. Who came by, what you saw overhead, what failed, what worked. That's intelligence gathering, but it's also sanity maintenance. And don't underestimate dark humor. Laughing at how catastrophically outgunned you are is a way of asserting, I am still here, I can still find this absurd. As long as you can mock something, you aren't fully owned by it. Here's the full reality check then. In an alien invasion, you are almost certainly not the chosen hero, the hacker, the ace pilot, or the prophetic child. You are a fragile mammal temporarily lucky enough to be breathing while something vast and indifferent rearranges your world. Your power is smaller, but it's not zero. You can recognize that something unprecedented is happening faster than the crowd. You can move early while others are still arguing online about whether it's real. You can secure basics, water, shelter, a small stock of calories before the shelves are stripped bare. You can keep your body from becoming an easy meal for microbes. You can avoid putting yourself in the path of panicked mobs and predatory opportunists. You can learn to be dim in the eyes of whatever is watching from above. You can build or join a small web of humans who watch each other's backs, grow things, fix things, and keep stories alive. None of that will look dramatic from the outside. There will be no music swelling when you finally get the rocket stove to lighten the rain. No slow-motion shot when you decide not to go into the city with the guys who swear the army is handing out supplies. No applause when you quietly teach a kid how to plant a potato instead of telling them everything will go back to normal. But if humanity has any future at all after the ships arrive, if there are still fires at night, still languages spoken, still children asking, what was it like before? It won't be because of one hero. It will be because of millions of not heroes refused, in small ways, to die on the first day. You don't get to choose whether aliens show up. You don't get to choose how advanced they are, what they want, or whether they find you specifically interesting. But you do get to choose one thing. When history stops being a book you read and becomes a weight pressing on your own chest, are you going to play pretend with heroic fantasies, or are you going to do the unglamorous work of staying alive? Invasion or not, that choice was always yours.